Okay, so we also just got off of a really great call with a client, and a lot of it was about confidence. And I said something to her where I said, I wish I could just wave my magic wand and just make you have this confidence and just gift it to you. If that is something that I wish I could gift people, it is. And it's easier said than done for someone who may not have it, or who like gets in their headspace too much about taking action and doing things. But you and I were having a discussion before we hit record about what are things that we think people can do to create their own confidence if they weren't naturally born with it, if they weren't, I want to say harvested, nurtured in that aspect
Nurtured
as they
into it.
were a child. How can you
Mhm.
create instances in your life as an adult to create confidence? Because I also want you all to know that, like, I know I just said the phrase, like, if you were just born naturally confident, and there are some people who have the personality who are just more outgoing. You-
I think some
I do
people
think
are
some
born
people
that
are.
way.
However, do not convince yourself that you cannot create it and you cannot learn it.
Oh, no, 100%. I think it can be created at any
Yes.
point in your life. I do think people there is an ease to it if it was something that was
Mhm.
taught
Yep.
to you. Um, and really this all came up because did you realize that Taylor Swift has trademarked the year in which I was born?
Yes, I did know that.
Okay, so Taylor owns 1989, which I just in my mind means that I am now just Taylor's
He
version,
owns you.
right? So like she owns my life. But we actually have a strange amount of things in common besides the year we were born. We both grew up on a Christmas tree farm. And I think there is something to that. I know Emily and I on the show have talked about in the past that we were both raised by moms that really bred into us you can do anything you set out to do. You are capable of anything. Like literally nonstop always said
Mhm.
to us. But I also think there's an element of you and I both lived in a romanticized version of our
100%.
life that wasn't totally true, but like we were led to believe it was true enough so that we believed we were
Yep.
capable of
Well, and
more.
I think we'll explain those scenarios a little bit, but it opens up the
Mhm.
conversation, which is what I want to have today, is like, does luxury and wealth, even if it's not real, and I'm not talking about debt here, where I'm going to give you some actual examples, even if it's not real, is that enough to be in close proximity to romanticizing situations? You said fairy tale,
Mhm.
right? Um,
Yeah.
that it truly makes you feel like you can do anything and that you are a different person when you get to try on those scenarios. And if you do that enough, can it actually change who you really are?
I think you can change your own beliefs if you tell yourself the same thing enough times. In the same way, in the same way that on the scary end of the spectrum, that people that
Right, right.
lie and like cheat and all the other things can say
Mhm.
things to themselves to cover up things. I think you can also use it as a superpower. But when I think about like growing up on a Christmas tree farm, I really think about this like a fairy tale version, Hallmark movie esque
Mhm. Mhm.
version of what childhood looks like, where, you know, one of my earliest memories is laying under a 16-foot Christmas tree and looking up at the lights in this beautiful house. And like, what does that say about me? Well, first of all, I don't think you guys have any remote idea of how much work it is to actually run and own a Christmas
Mhm.
tree farm. But also, like, they were doing it at the height of
Yeah.
that era when, like, having a real tree
Mhm.
was the like romantic part of what you
There
did
were
for the
so many
holidays. Like,
holiday
you would go
movies
with your,
around, like, getting a tree and getting hot cocoa and, like, making this date and doing this
yeah,
whole thing. Yeah.
but like being in that situation you start to believe this like
Mhm, mhm.
fantasy, I think, in some ways. Um, and I was young enough and impressionable enough that it wasn't about, I didn't necessarily see all the hard
Right.
work. I didn't necessarily see the hard days. I didn't necessarily see the books or see the challenges that it brought on. I just saw happy families coming to collect their Christmas tree. I saw my grandma passing out cookies and hot cocoa and candy canes and like the joy on children's faces. I had the news come to my kindergarten field trip because the school brought every kid to my
Mhm,
grandparents'
mhm.
house for a field trip. And like I didn't I used to take those years for granted in a lot of ways because I was like, oh, those were the days. But I'm realizing those were the days because it allowed me to
Mhm,
become the
mhm,
person I am
mhm.
today.